Okay, so this video is a little different from what I've been doing lately. This is my 1975 International Harvester tractor that I use. Use it mostly for moving hay and plowing snow on the driveway and also the road. We've got a private road out here that I plow a couple miles long. And so the seat on it is completely disintegrated and it's been neglected and should have been replaced a long time ago. Long overdue. It's completely rusted out, rotted out, and everything. And so what I've done is I went and bought this County Line universal tractor seat from Tractor Supply. It comes in a couple different parts. There's the frame piece here. It's got some adjustments on it so it can slide forward and back. And then the mounting brackets here, you can see they slide in and out. And then on the bottom there's different mounting holes. And a couple of cushions that attach to it. And so I've already started this project a little bit. I put the seat back on just so you guys could see exactly how bad it looked when it was there. The frame's completely rusted and rotted out. So look at the bottom of it. I mean, there's just nothing left there. It was really just resting in place on top of the frame. I had taken this off and I replaced these bolts because they were just rusted and rotten, along with these here. And then I started putting stuff together and I thought, well, maybe I should make a video of this. So I'm gonna pull that bracket back off. Here's my bucket, and this is kind of my workstation right now, where I can work on things and have a rest and stuff. And then I'm gonna put this together and I'll do a little bit more video here. So something I didn't mention in the previous video clip is the seat also has some adjustments too. There's a slot down here and some notches back here where this can adjust forward or back, along with the seat also has an adjustment on the frame that it has to slide forward and back too. So right now I'm kind of figuring out exactly where I want this and the relation of these bolts versus the bolts in the bottom of the new tractor seat and how that lines up so that I can get things to where they still slide back and forth properly and it's not too far forward or too far back, that kind of thing. So been working on that for just a minute here, and I'll show you some of that here in just a second. Okay, so something else you didn't see earlier because I got started before I actually started filming. This is the bottom of the seat there, and it was attached to these frame pieces. And one of these, this guy was actually, or was this guy? This guy was a little bit bent and bowed just from wear and tear and stress and all that kind of stuff. But this was all attached to this and these mounting holes, and these are the screws that were holding both on here and then also on there. And so I've decided that I was going to replace everything with new hardware, obviously, because that's just garbage and stuff. But I wanted to show you the condition of the bottom of the seat, and you can see some of these old nuts and stuff. They're pretty rough. But this is the seat now, the tractor original frame for the seat, and that's the orientation it should be. So this is the back bar that slides up and down in those notches, and then this is the front bar that goes in that front groove for sliding back and forth. This is the bottom of the new tractor seat right here, and it's pretty cool because it's got some different slots and notches in here for attaching to, so it is pretty universal in that aspect. And then it also has these notches on the side here to where you can slide these in and out depending on where they need to go for the orientation of these bolts. So now I'm in the process of figuring out exactly which notches and slots I want to use to line up with these so that I can get the appropriate movement back and forth between that frame and that frame. There's a little lever there for sliding it back and forth, but I want to figure out exactly which bolts I need to use, which holes I need to use on this to match up with that, so that I'm not having to drill and all that kind of stuff, and just use what's already existing, but get the most amount of movement forward and backwards so it can fit me, my wife, a variety of different people, that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm working on right now. Okay, so a little bit of back and forth between here and playing around with these rails, and then back on the tractor back there, or on the seat area back there. And I found that these are probably the slots that I'm going to use right there. That seems to allow the most forward and backward movement with both the original seat frame and also the adjustable one. Something that just came to light here that I noticed was I needed to make sure I kept my orientation properly, because this rail here has the grooves cut out in it, which match up to this. This one does not. So like when the seat's actually in its proper orientation, right, you need to make sure that that handle lines up with those grooves. And something else I noticed too is there is not a lot of clearance in here for some bolts to go. I've got to mount, it didn't come with any bolts other than the bolts to mount the cushions to the frame, the universal frame. There are no mounting bolts to go from this frame onto this frame, so I had to go inside and take a look at what I got. I've got some of these. I think these will fit, but what I might have to do is put a couple on at a time as I slide the seat on and move my way back. We'll see how it goes, but there's not going to be, at least with these, there's not a lot of clearance there between that bolt head and the top edge of this versus these nuts and the bottom lip of that. So this could get a little tricky and might take me a couple minutes to figure out. I'm sure there's a way. I just got to play around with it a little bit. And so I'm going to pause the video for a second while I start getting these rails attached and then sliding this on to that. And then I can make the adjustments on these as I slide it all together and tighten them down as far as, you know, how far in or outward those rails need to be. And then I'll start the video up here in just a minute. And so something else I just noticed was those holes in the original seat frame are actually offset. So another thing that I'll need to figure out is as I slide the seat frame onto the track, trying to navigate those nuts past these bolt heads and get everything attached, I will also need to make sure that I can still adjust it side to side so that the seat actually gets centered in the space. So when we come back here, there's plenty of space. It actually measured like about 20, 21 inches, something like that. And the seat's, I think, 18 inches wide, 17 and a half inches wide, something like that. So there's plenty of space there, but I definitely want the seat to be centered in there versus off to the side. So that'd be awkward. So something else to note. So we've got the seat, and then this is also pretty neat. They got some bolt patterns on the back here. So actual seat size of the cushion and then a bolt pattern. So it's got some measurements on there to know if it'll work or not with your tractor. I figured it would work with mine being as adjustable as it is, and worst case scenario, I figured I'd, drill some holes or whatever I need to do just to get the seat to mount if I had to, but it looks like I won't have to. The holes that are there are going to work out, and even though there's some rust on this, it's really not as bad as I expected it to be underneath. I cleaned it up a little bit with some brushes. I'm not going to take the time to restore it, not at this point. I just brushed off some of the rust, cleaned it up a little bit, and I'm going to call it good for now. I've got lots of other work to do on this tractor yet, and also to my skid steer. So got to keep things moving forward right now. And so wouldn't you know it, Murphy struck. Right after I got through saying I was sure that this would line up, being as adjustable as it is, with the holes that I had already in the original frame. Turns out it won't. So I've got these pushed in as far as I can go. And even just with things in place, nothing's tightened down yet. You can see that the rails do not line up. If I line up this one here, the other one does not. And they're, again, adjusted as far in as they can go. So I'm going to have to pause the video again and drill some new holes on here so that I can move this rail out a little bit. Probably center it up more so it's centered with that one over here, because these look very much centered and it's adjustable there. But I'm going to have to create some space between both of these in order to mount that seat, because it's not going to go on as is. So I'm going to pause the video and come back here once I get those holes done and start doing this again. So what I've done is I've measured this, and it looks like those holes are about 3 7/8 inch off from this edge here. And so what I've done is I've gone and measured over here about 3 7/8 inch over, pretty close anyway, on both those sides. And then I've used my punch to go ahead and create some little divots, and I'm going to drill a pilot hole. And once the pilot hole's through, then I'll go ahead and go with the regular size hole to match up with that so that my bolts will fit. So here we go. All right, so I've got a little bit of cutting oil that I use. I like to use cutting oil when I'm drilling through metal as opposed to just regular oil. It seems to work really well. Always make sure you wear your safety glasses. And here we go. Oil really helps to keep your bits from getting worn out too quick. Makes them last longer. Okay, those are the pilot holes. Now I got to do the full-size holes for the bolts. When I see it smoking, I try to cool it down with a little bit of oil. I also know that there's too much friction then too. One. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but make sure you wear your safety glasses, because it only takes one little piece to screw things up for the rest of your life. And I probably should have this braced with something in a vise, things like that, but it's okay. I'm sure I'm okay. I can tell that the bite of the drill bit against the metal is not so severe. There's some pretty good weight to this too, that it's not going to go anywhere. At worst, it would flip and hit me in the chest. And sure, it could hurt, maybe bust a rib. I do not endorse you doing this. You should probably have it in a vise and blocked. I do not recommend doing it freestyle like I do. You can feel it getting ready to cut through. Here we go. And that's where you could have a problem, is if you don't realize it's about ready to cut through, and it does, and then it goes and whacks you in the chest pretty good. I've done enough of this that I'm not an expert, but I've done enough of this that I got a pretty good feel for it. So, all right, I'm going to clean that up, and then we can start putting our tracks on. And before I go any further, quick shout out about these tub of towels, heavy duty cleaning wipes. They're not a sponsor, but they are freaking awesome, and they work great for cleaning off dirt and grime and crap off your hands. I hate greasy, oily, black hands working on things, and I can't really have that in my professional career position, that sort of thing. I can't have that look. I don't do that kind of work. So I got to keep my hands halfway decent, and these things help a whole lot. And you can see they do a great job cleaning things up and getting all the grease and oil off. But anyway, Amazon.com, they're not that expensive, and you get 90 wipes in there. They last a while, and they work freaking great. All right, so back to getting the tracks on. So I put my first couple bolts in those holes in the front there, and I started sliding the seat on, and they cleared okay. Those nuts in the bottom of those cleared the first couple bolts. There's the back ones there. They're not in all the way. I was just doing a test fit, haven't screwed them down yet, but they seem to be clearing okay. Looks like they'll be all right. It's pretty close, but should work. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten those bolts down, at least the front ones, and keep putting this on the track and putting it together, and then I'll show you some more here in a second. Yeah, I've played around with this for a minute now, and it's going to go on just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to put a washer underneath these. There's enough there, and it's just a seat. It's going to hold just fine without a washer, but I don't want to add that extra space and bring that bolt head closer to the nuts on that. But I played around with this a little bit, and it's going to slide back and forth just fine with those bolts in there. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten those down. I've got both washers and lock washers and nuts for the back side to make sure it's good and sturdy. And I think there's plenty enough meat there that these guys are going to hold just fine. But I'm going to tighten all that down and slide that on, and then we can work with the adjustments and getting those bolts, lined up and tightened up and get this centered. The tracks are centered, so that's good. This is pretty well centered. There's only about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 inch between, this edge here and the track back on the tractor. So once I get this bolted down, I'm going to put this piece on there, and then I'll start the video back up. Okay, guys, so I've got my tracks on. I got my bolts in. They look pretty good. They should have plenty of clearance there. Everything's snugged up. Now we're going to do a test fit. Make sure that it actually all goes together, and then we can adjust those and tighten those down too. Something else I wanted to make note of too, if you guys go to do this, there are some stops in here. Okay, so make sure that when you put this together and you put this on, and maybe you can't make this mistake, but you want to make sure that you can put the seat on from the front. Okay, because like in my tractor, there's no way I could go and put the seat on from the back, right? It's completely blocked off. So the seat has to slide on from the front if I'm going to mount the bracket and get it all on there and then put the seat on. So just make sure that when you put your tracks on, you put it all back together, especially if you take them off and play around with them, they'll slide back and forth on this frame track, but they will only, the frame will only come on and off one way from these. So just make sure that when you put this all together, your stops are set up the way that they need to be for yours, so that you can come in from the front and slide your seat on. So that's what we're going to try here in just a second. I think everything's all good, and now it's time for a test fit. roll. Oh, we gotta pull the lever to release it. Okay. Watch your fingers. Hey, look at that. All right, it's on. And it'll slide back and forth. So now I gotta get this centered up in here and get these guys evened out so that this is sitting more square. Yeah, but once this is attached to the tractor, then this should slide back and forth without a problem. So yeah, there we go. Look at that. That's cool. All right, I'm going to pause the video and play around with this some more, and we're almost done. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just kind of tapping this back and forth on the sides to get this squared up. You know, it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay, but I figured this edge here should probably be pretty parallel to that. Make sure it slides back and forth, and then trying to get this evened up. The gap here on this side versus the gap on this side. And the reason I was talking about wanting to make sure you can bring it off through the front, take this seat frame off of the tracks, is because, well, you've got to get your mounting bolts and stuff when you put your cushions on. And I don't want to have to deal with that all upside down and underneath here. I want to take this whole thing off, put my cushions on, and then just slide the seat back on. So that's why I was talking about making sure that you can get that seat back off of those tracks when you need to. And then I suppose too, if you need to do any maintenance. Now this one here, this particular tractor, it does lift up on the back. It's hinged in the front. The back just sits in these, it has that rod that sits in those grooves. So I could get to things back there if I needed to, but maybe yours is different. But anyway, I'm going to keep fiddling with this until I get it about as even as I want. Then I'm going to slide it off, put the cushions on, and then make sure I can slide it back on, and we're almost there. Okay, and so here, what I've done is I've just gone and rested this seat. If I could get it back off. I've just gone and rested this on here so I can play around with it a little bit because I'm very particular. Yes, I am. But I want to try to get it centered in there, try to get it squared. I can sit down and make sure that things feel right as far as sitting forward and back. It's a little bit awkward because the seat does sit higher than what I'm used to. Granted, my other seat was collapsing and falling down into that area. So I could take that bar and flip that bar and the other bar upside down and bring that seat down if I really wanted to, probably. I don't know that I will. We'll see how it goes. This is going to be leaps and bounds better beyond what I used to have. I've had this tractor for 14 years now, 15 years. And while it needed a new seat when I got it, it really needed a new seat like 6-7 years ago. And I've just been suffering through because I had other projects and other things I was working on, putting up with it, and it was time to swap this out. So this seat, again, from Tractor Supply, I think it cost me like $179. This is March of 2025, and it was like $169, $179. But you know what? It'll go a long ways and be well worth it, I think, once I get done. So I'm going to go back to fiddling with my seat and getting it all adjusted. But here's an idea here. You can just kind of set this in here. Granted, there's slots, right? So it's a little bit sloppy right now. But what I'm really trying to do is get this squared up and make sure that this is pretty comfortable where it's at before I start to really tighten things down, because I hate undoing things just to redo them again. And so I fiddle around with it enough. Enough's enough. This is about where it's going to go. Right where those bolts are, that seems to be about right, at least for now. I could always take it apart and change things if I need to, but for now, I think that's pretty darn good, and we're going to tighten this up and then start putting the seats on. And the back bolts there, I couldn't get well, with that screwdriver, I couldn't get back up behind there. You could use a smaller screwdriver. I was just too lazy to go inside and find one. But to show you my point, by jamming up that flathead against that bolt there, that will hold it, and then you can take your wrench and you can go ahead and tighten that up so that, of course, you need 2 hands for it, but that way it doesn't move on you, and you can go ahead and tighten it. There you go, and get it snug. Got it? Okay. Hope you do. Anyway, be back in a minute. Okay, so I've got everything tightened down over there on the tractor. That's all set. I did a test fit with the seat. The seat's got these bolts here that you got to tighten down. They get tightened down to these grooves. You can reach them for the back of this side. And so what I need to do now is I need to take this, slide them into the notches, slide them back so they lock, and then tighten them down. Once I get these tightened down, I can do the same thing with the back of the seat. Once the back of the seat's all together, along with the bottom and the frame, then I should be able to just go ahead and slide this in the track, and we should be good. So I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up after I get these things tightened down, both the seat and the back, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to do the back seat. And guys, if you made it this long into the video, do me a favor and give me a like, and maybe you can subscribe. Trying to put all kinds of different content out there. And if this is something that interests you, something that you'd like to see more of, then let me know, and I can certainly do more videos of it. I've got a skid steer to work on. I've got lots more to do on my tractor. I've already done a whole bunch this last couple weekends, and I can talk about that too. But if you like this kind of stuff, then let me know. Say something down in the comments, and give me a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But now, get the back on, slide down those notches, and get this guy tightened up. Okay, time to go see if it fits. And now for the moment of truth. Okay. Oh, look at that. Tips forward because it's supposed to. So we can get access down there. But look at that. That's pretty cool. Got the lever here. I can adjust it forward or back. I can take this and adjust this to that farthest notch right there. No, maybe not quite the farthest. Move this forward. There. All right. So the tractor frame is in the back, the furthest notch back there. The seat I can then take and adjust forward or back, depending on where it needs to be. But that's really about perfect. And it is way better than what I used to have to deal with. So you guys saw in the beginning of the video the seat that I used to have on here, and I'll probably add a clip of it just a still so you guys can see it again. It was pretty rough and in a really rough condition, and this is going to go a long ways to making my work a whole lot more comfortable and easier on my back, because the other thing was just killing me every time I drove it for a couple hours plowing the road and stuff. Just way too hard on my back, and it would take a week, 2 weeks to really recover. I got a bad back. But anyway, so this will help a lot, and it looks a whole lot better, I think. And yeah, I could flip it upside. I could flip these frames bars upside down if I wanted to. If I wanted to lower it a little bit, I'm going to drive it around a little bit like this and see how I like it, and see if it stays or if I need to make some adjustments. And I can always fabricate something else if I need to. But this really only took me a couple hours today, and that was only because I was trying to film and stuff and show you guys too. Really, it wasn't all that bad of a swap out, and it was pretty darn adjustable. I did have to drill those couple holes, but I mean, this is a 1975 International Harvester. It's a 2500 series, which is like the 574, but it's an industrial tractor. So there's the 574, which is pretty common, and then the 2500, which was supposed to be more industrial, more heavy duty or something. But fairly common, I guess. I found a lot of different forums out there that talk about them, and have different people out there who know them, who can talk through how to repair things, how to diagnose things, things like that. The seat was not much of a concern, and I just put up with it until recently. The last time, I've been plowing a lot this winter. It's been really, we've had a lot of snow, especially in February. And I was plowing a couple times a week, again, 2 miles. So it's, 2 miles up, 2 miles down. And sometimes I got to do it, 2 times, 4 times, just depending on how much snow we get and how far I can get it off the road. And the seat was just killing me. So Tractor Supply, universal tractor seat, $169, $179, something like that. Couple hours of my time. Wasn't really all that bad, not nearly as bad as I expected. And it's been fun making this video too. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, give me a like, give me a subscribe, really appreciate it. And tell me in the comments what else you'd like to see. What types of videos do you want to see? Do you want to see more on this tractor? Do you want to see something on my skid steer? I've got a New Holland LS 180 skid steer that I got to do some work on. Do lots of other stuff, lots of shooting, lots of gun stuff. Let me know in the comments, and until next time, thanks for watching.